past president of the Monsignor Slocum Division No. 1 of Waterbury, Connecticut, Ancient Order of Hibernians in America. We are commemorating the 41st anniversary of the, I don't think it's too strong a word to say, the assassination of people that were peacefully protesting their civil rights in the Bogside in Londonderry. The 1st Parachute Regiment opened fire on what was an unarmed, peaceful protest by the Irish Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association, which had been founded in 1967. Now, there's a continuity between this country and the old country. In many ways, the people that had been dispossessed and downgraded as second-class citizens in the north of Ireland very carefully observed what had gone on with the civil rights movement in the United States of America. And the British Empire, of course, had inspired much of this, because Gandhi had been originally inspired by the Irish Revolution in 1916, and then the subsequent war that finally set the south of Ireland free. Gandhi's nonviolent protest methods had been taken over by Martin Luther King in the 1960s, and in 1967, the Irish Northern Ireland Civil Rights Association had been founded to demand those same sorts of civil rights for the Catholic minority in the north. So there they were on a Sunday afternoon, peacefully protesting. There were members of the IRA and the Provisional IRA in the crowd, but everyone there says that they were unarmed. They had been told by their commanders to appear as part of a nonviolent protest, and the 1st Regiment of the British paratroopers decided to go wild. They opened fire on the crowd, gunning down the people that we're going to talk about today. Without too much further ado, let me just remind everybody that only recently has the truth about this slaughter of the innocents come out. Immediately following the actual event in 1972, there was a report put out by the Waterbury Commission, which basically said that the British Army had fired in self-defense against a crowd that was both visibly armed and throwing bombs. Now that was rushed out in less than a month after the actual events occurred, but there was so uproarious a reaction to that forever afterwards there were people that wanted to get to the truth of the situation. And the Saville report, at the cost, the last I read, of £195 million, finally took testimony from all the participants and came to the conclusion that the parachute regiment had been out of control, had fired wildly into the crowd, had assassinated people with no justification at all, and that the claims by the protesters to be innocent bystanders and unarmed civil rights marchers was in fact true. There has not yet been, as far as I know, any criminal prosecution for the people murdered that day, but it's something that is potentially possible. I'd like to call Mike Costello to come forward and say a few words.
Well, Margaret, I'm standing here for Mary Ward from close to Derry in Ireland, Republican Sinn Féin. I didn't have my grandson here. I couldn't work the phone, so he can work it, I can, so that's why we don't have Mary Ward. Anyway, I think you covered it all. This is the 31st anniversary. One of the few
41st.
One of the few that's being carried on in America today. Now, I've seen huge crowds all over the place. But you should be very, very proud that you're here today. You are one of the few. And it's being done with honor and with dignity. As you said, to commemorate the innocent people that were killed. And they were all innocent. They were mowed down by the parachute regiment. And what happened to the officers of the parachute regiment? They were promoted. And they were promoted many times since. That was one of the many, many massacres. Now, if we take the individuals, over the years, there were over 2,000 Irish people killed by a foreign force in Ireland. That never went away. They're still there, unfortunately, despite the best and the worst that could be thrown at them. They're still there. But the reason it all happened is they were denied, the basic human civil rights in the occupied 6 counties. Let's call it what it is, occupied Ireland. Divided against the will of the Irish people by the British government, the country and the province was divided. The Brits were in charge. The Irish nationalists, Republicans, Irish objected to it. They were treated, second-class citizens wouldn't have been bad. They were treated much worse than animals. They were forced to leave. So many over here, Australia, wherever, all over the world. So it grew and grew and grew. They got educated, and we see Bernard Devlin McCalliskey. She came out of that era. And other people like her. So there was a very, very vibrant civil rights movement, totally peaceful. The Brits seen it as a threat, a real threat. They always want democracy. Well, here's democracy. And they shot. And shot and shot. 5 17-year-olds were killed that day. The oldest was 59. There was no mercy. Before that, we know very well what happened in 1916, the Easter Rising, the proclamation and the foundation of the Irish Republic, and this is what it's all about. That Irish Republic was founded, proclaimed, and ratified in 1918. The British turned that over and said, no, we're going to divide the country here and here. We'll put our people in charge in the south and in the north. And they'll do the fighting for us. And that has what happened since. Republicans look to 1918, where there was a republic formed and put down militarily. It was a legal entity. It's still legal today. You don't have any right in Ireland to go out and shoot somebody, British or not, unless you are defending the republic. You cannot pick up an arm and go and say, oh, you're a Brit. There's 55,000 Brits living in the south of Ireland and been there, and nobody was ever touched. Ever. And they some of them are great, some of them are nasty, but they're there. They're unarmed combatants. As I said, it's all in defense of the Republic. There's no justification for anything else. There's all justification to fight for the Republic. And that is what the big threat is. The status quo in Ireland is threatened by people talking about the Republic. Your gathering here today is noticed in the places that really count, in Dublin, in London, and in Belfast. They know exactly what's being said, by whom, and why it's even going on, because it's not supposed to go on. You're supposed to lie down, crappie. Didn't we tell you, the 17, 18, 1900s, lie down, crappie. But it was America that supported 1916. It was America, the Fenians, that fought in the so-called Civil War here. And it was the Irish born and new descendants who fought with Washington, with Lincoln, and all the wars since. And I think we are owed something by this government, that at least start talking about a constitutional convention. These are our demands for all of Ireland, to get away from the status quo. The people that have caused the economic and political problems in Ireland are now in charge of resolving it. Do what Iceland did, put them all in jail, and start off anew. This is what it's all about. The shooting in Derry was about like the Sunday before in 1920, the first bloody Sunday, when they went into Croke Park, after Collins wiped out their super spies the night before. What do? What they always do, what they do best. They went in and shot people. Many bloody Sundays in Ireland. And when you add up the individual, it's all about the republic. That republic is a threat because it's still there, it's legitimate, and people will fight for it. And if they're not fighting for the republic, then you don't support them. There's no reason. Just be aware of that. Bobby Sands died for the republic. He said it before he died. All those before him and all since died for the republic. No matter who killed them, if they were, you don't have to be in the IRA to get shot. 700 innocent people were shot. We know that. All because of the republic. The republic is live because it was legitimate. It was an election, a British election. And we know 75% of Sinn Féin at the time, United Sinn Féin, 75 seats, or 75%. And what do they do? As I said before, brought in the guns. That's it. That's all I can say. I'm sorry Mary Ward isn't here. You would have been really had a good treat, but this is the best I can do. Garmina Magi, and congratulations for being here. Good morning.
I'd like to call on Joe Flaherty to step forward, please.
The dead. John Jack Duddy, 17. Patrick Joseph Doherty, 31. Bernard McGuigan, 41. Hugh Pius Gilmore, 17. Kevin McElhenney, 17. Michael Gerald Kelly, 17. John Young, 17. William Noel Nash, 19. Michael McDade, 20. James Ray, 22. Gerald Gunnahy, 17. Gerald McKinney, 34. And William Anthony McKinney, 27. John Johnston, 59. Good afternoon. I would first like to thank everyone on behalf of the Freedom for All Ireland Committee for coming out today to remember the 14 innocent civilians that were brutally murdered 41 years ago. We're not here today to preach to you. You didn't come here to be preached to. We're not here today to convert you into anything. You certainly didn't come here to be converted. I feel it my privilege and duty, however, to continuously advocate for civil rights. Civil rights that 14 innocent lives, over half of them children under the age of 20, were stolen over. Those same civil rights that today are still being trampled on and downgraded by the British government. We're fast approaching the 32nd anniversary of the 1981 hunger strike. We are 41 years since Bloody Sunday, and we are now 15 years into the Good Friday Agreement, the so-called peace agreement. So let's examine what has changed. Our men and women are still facing selective internment. Our men and women are still targeted and harassed on a daily basis for their religious and political beliefs. Our men and women are still imprisoned under an unjust and foreign system. ERA is still divided, and the Brits still hold a foreign oppressive occupation on the country. The British government, working close with so-called mainstream Republicans, have perpetuated to the world that everything is fine in Ireland, that the troubles are long over, and the GFA has proven to be the godsend that provisional Sinn Féin promised it would be. All of which are untrue. The reality is that the GFA, this so-called peace agreement, has widened the divide and perpetuates an ongoing violence that it promised to stop. Although we are gathered here to commemorate the victims of Bloody Sunday, I would be amiss if I didn't mention the passing of veteran Irish Republican Dolores Price, who tragically passed away this past week. Her sister Marion Price resides unjustly in a British cell, and until this morning had been refused the right to attend her sister's funeral. May you rest in peace, Ogla Dolores Price. I ask that as you leave here today, that you remember Ireland, and the lives that were lost fighting for her freedom. To that, I can add nothing further. Chokiar las, Longafoil.